Welcome to Let's Talk with Dr. Robin. In this podcast, topics will be discussed that promote the daily management of life. While this information is meant to supplement your journey towards healthy emotional well-being, it is not intended to take the place of seeing a licensed mental health professional. I am Dr. Robin C. Wiley, a licensed clinical social worker with a private therapy practice in New Jersey. Thank you for joining today's conversation. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk with Dr. Robin. I am Dr. Robin. Thank you for joining me today. Hey, Bryce.
Hey, how you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How you doing today?
You know what? It's hot. So,
it is hot.
You know,
it is.
I don't know if I'm still dehydrated or I'm just my sleepy Sunday as normal. So, but I'm good. Hey, listen, it's a blessing to be alive, blessing to be here, but
right.
I'm a little tired.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's almost like one of those things. I'm grateful for being able to be tired.
Yeah,
grateful to be
absolutely.
here, right?
Absolutely.
So we have, we're moving kind of slow today.
So good.
I think part of it is, like you said, I think it's the heat. I think it's being tired. It's a Sunday. But the good thing is we're back in the studio. You've been in the studio. I'm back in the studio. Yes. Was doing some traveling here and there. So
how was your travels?
My travels were great. They were really great.
Okay.
I'm very big on spending time, carving out time to spend with family.
Absolutely.
And I think that's even more and more important since the pandemic when we weren't able to see people.
Right.
Plus the idea of just getting away, taking some time for self.
Sure.
Some getaways, that type of thing. So, whether it's self-care, what have you. But I had a really nice time. Weather was, last week I was in Baltimore, so the weather was a little weird.
Okay.
However, we persevered, which is about which is what we're talking about in today's show.
And now I'm not sure. I mean, you mentioned Baltimore. I know anytime I go to Baltimore, I get seafood. So I don't know.
I did. Yes, we had some really good seafood.
Okay.
Yes, and actually a good one of my. So I know today I have on my Virginia State University T-shirt. I am an alum of VSU. That's where I started my educational journey into social work there. Right. I got my BSW from VSU. Those of you who don't know about VSU, VSU is in, it's in Ettrick, Virginia, but it will say like Petersburg. Ettrick is like right there beside Petersburg. It's an HBCU.
Okay.
And I'm very, very proud to be an alum. It was, I can say, one of the best educational experiences I had. And it laid the foundation. The professors I had there, the friends I made.
Wow.
Are friends for life.
Wow.
And professors that I still keep in contact with. And they set the foundation for me in my career.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So while I was in Baltimore, in Maryland, I was at the harbor because a good friend of mine, one of my best friends from college, I'm going to say her name. She's Jerry. I'm going to say her name.
Okay.
I got a chance to see her, so it was good to catch up with her and to reminisce over our VSU days.
Wow.
And you got to think that's like, we're not going to talk about when I finished VSU, but it was in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So it's been a minute. Yeah. It's been a minute. So to have, it's awesome to have friendships, that long that you can catch up with somebody and reminisce like it was just yesterday.
Well, I tell you one thing, at the end of the day, I'll be honest with you, the 90s, they were the best of times.
Well, I have a relative, a cousin who she was born in the 90s. So the people who are born in the 90s would always say it was the best of times.
Oh, yeah,
but I think music-wise, it was absolutely
That's what I'm saying, like music,
yeah, music-wise.
Right? 70s was a great, but it was before my time.
Well, yeah.
So we look back on them 70s. But
I'm a 70s baby. But I think the 90s though. Yeah, the 90s, the music. Yeah,
so everything changed, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
music was actually, music. I want to say music was music then.
Right.
But I think it was just we just saw some different elements of music, and it's music that will last forever.
Right. Absolutely.
And especially, I think if you were in college during that time or, high school, college during that time, it was definitely impactful. So, all right. So we digress for a second.
Right.
So one of the things I wanted to mention, even though we're almost done with the month of May, we are, and forgive me for not mentioning this earlier in one of our earlier shows, but, May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
It sure is.
It is. It is Mental Health Awareness Month. And
sure
so, on this show, we talk about things related to mental health and wellness, and, merging together different concepts and different strategies to encourage overall good mental wellness,
Right.
and, in addition to other things. And so, just a nice reminder that we need to prioritize our mental health.
Absolutely.
Mental health is important. And again, I'm always talking about like what's individually significant for you as the person, but you have to decide, what that is for you. Sometimes
Right.
that means, removing yourself from situations or removing yourself from people or whatever that means.
Right.
But we do have to prioritize our mental health because
Right.
we're the only people that are going to prioritize that to the level that it needs to be prioritized.
Right. Right.
And so I see a lot of people coming into therapy these days that, they're stressed out about work situations, family situations, a lot of things that are unknown, a lot of situations that are beyond their control.
Yeah.
And so, last week we talked about the need to let go of control.
It's a great topic too.
I think it was,
control. Yeah.
It's a topic that I think we all struggle with the control factor. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even Dr. Robin, we all struggle with that in different elements, different areas of our life. And, just seeing that it can be freeing to let go of that, that need for it.
Right.
Because there's so many things where we're not going to have control.
Right. No.
And so to kind of continue on with the topic, in a sense, today's episode is entitled Persevering Through Uncertain Times. And so we talked about this, I would say probably like a year and a half ago, during the height of the pandemic, where we were dealing with, being on lockdown and all these just uncertain things, just things that just were unknown.
Yeah.
It was difficult to know what was going to happen down the road, what was going to be the outcome.
Right.
And so, I thought it was a good topic, and I thought it was good to bring it up today because we live in a world that challenges our mental health.
Sure. It really does that.
On a regular basis, basically.
Yeah,
absolutely. Every day.
Constantly.
Daily. Right. Yeah.
Never fails.
Never fails.
I'm just saying.
Constantly. So the idea would be is that, and again, last week, hopefully you watched last week's show, but if you didn't, one of the things that I wanted to kind of like hit home for everybody was the idea that the only thing that we really can control is us, is our response to things.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so with uncertain times, these are also things that are outside of our control.
Right.
And uncertainty doesn't have to be negative. Uncertainty could also be just, something that is unfamiliar. You're traveling on new territory, you're chartering new territory.
Right.
And so then that feels uncomfortable because maybe there's a change we need to make. That change could be a great change. Maybe it's something we are embarking upon.
Right.
I'll give an example. I, with having this, the YouTube channel and, trying to increase the social media presence and all that kind of stuff. This is definitely an area that I am not a native of. I'm not a digital native. So I'm fine with technology. I love tech and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not overly familiar with all of the nuances related to social media. Like beyond the basic, I'm gonna post something and that's it.
Yeah.
So I am working with someone
to help, champion that.
To help me, who is challenging me on some various things that I need to do.
Right.
And so it's some unfamiliar territory. And so therefore it's, it's
scary.
It's making me a little uncomfortable here and there. So, but the other part of this is being uncomfortable also means sometimes that, there's growth ahead.
Sure.
You know what I mean? We have to kind of journey in the uncomfortable space a little bit.
Absolutely.
To be able to grow and to be able to expand. And so it is important to me. So what I keep in focus is it's important to me to disseminate information. It's important for me as a professional.
Right.
As a licensed clinical social worker and a therapist to make sure I'm getting information out there to people who I may never even see or hear from or whatever. Right. But that's important to me. So because that's important to me, I realize this is the medium that I need to utilize.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that in a second, because I want to talk about reframing and relabeling things and how we do that and how that can make us, that can create a sense of more comfort in a situation.
Right.
All right. So let's go back for a second. So let's start with, perseverance, or to persevere is like I'd say it's like a somewhat of a maybe not a $10 word, but a $5 word. I don't know if anybody knows what that means. That's like I think that's a country saying, definitely.
I got you.
so the meaning is, in a sense, to kind of push through, but it's that persistence. Mm-hmm. It's being persistent in doing whatever it is you need to do, despite
the challenge.
Despite the difficulty or the delay in your progress. Yeah. So it's essentially staying the course. Which we talked about last week too, staying the course, keeping with whatever, your focus is, or wherever you're trying to get to, whatever your destination is.
Right.
And so, of course, we know with uncertain times, that's all about the unknown, like I said earlier. And this can happen at any time in our lives. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. Mm-hmm. It could actually just be sometimes you may be at a crossroads.
Yeah.
You may be at a crossroads. You may need to make a decision. Like a lot of times people talk about, making a decision about changing a career or.
Those crossroad moments, they're very scary, to be honest with you, because you don't know. You've been, what it is, you've been traveling a road for so long, it becomes a little predictable.
Right.
So you kind of know, okay, what to expect.
You're comfortable on that.
Right. If I travel at this rate of speed, at this and that, I know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But then when you get to those crossroad moments, it's like, okay, do I give up the comfortability for something uncomfortable, which could eventually become comfortable?
Right.
Or I don't want to stay comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
But what happens is typically if it requires us to make a change or to try something new or what have you, then eventually that will become comfortable, because you got to think where we are now wasn't always comfortable.
Right. But then
we got there.
Right. But then I don't want to become, so we're looking for a new comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Show should have been entitled.
Right, uncomfortable.
How to be comfortable. How to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
The uncomfortable, because you can become comfortable with uncomfortableness.
You can,
right?
And and that's a different show, because that's almost that's almost like staying in something, like staying in your dysfunction or that type of stuff.
So that's where it's like, but when you're at a crossroads, you're trying to figure out the next level of comfortability. Because where you're at, I'm already comfortable. But if there's a crossroads for me, I don't know.
Right. You don't know what's about to happen.
I don't know what's about to happen.
And it could be about the challenge. And so what happens is sometimes, like it could be about, in our career or something like that, where we want to take things to the next level.
Sure.
Everything is showing us that we need to go in that direction. We need to take things to the next level, but we're just not comfortable with it. So that's like, like having a YouTube channel. That's, we talked about that forever.
Yeah.
You were like, I think you need to do this. I think you need to do this. And I was like, well, let's wait. Yeah. Let's hold on a second.
Until you, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Until I was ready. And until I realized that everything was leading to that. That's what we needed to do. And speaking of that, like, share, subscribe.
Absolutely.
Okay. Don't forget to do that. Don't forget to do that. Share it with your friends. If you're trying to figure out a way how to tell them something,
just tell them.
Send them my show.
That's it.
Like, here you go. Just send that to them.
Right.
So here's the thing with perseverance. When you're trying to, sort of like wade through those murky waters, maybe, it can require some adjustment. So then that's the uncomfortable part for us, is that a lot of times, there is that need for us to adjust for what is, or possibly what is meant to be. Right. And like I said, that doesn't always have to be negative. You know what I mean? It could result in some very positive things for us, but it's just navigating through, through the fog in a sense, because it may not seem clear to us.
Right.
So when you think about the stuff that we've gone through in the last, 2 years, I mean, we're still in it. Well, I think now it's more of an endemic versus a pandemic, but the pandemic, because there was a lot of uncertainty during that time. And that's what that's what caused us to kind of like come up with this topic and to talk about this to begin with during the pandemic, because everybody was dealing with, well, how long is this going to last? And what does it mean? Because most of us have never been through anything even close to anything like this. Wearing masks, all that kind of stuff. And so there's things that we've experienced during that, a lot of changes in circumstances, a lot of changes.
Right.
There are people who never would have thought of working from home. And now a bunch of us work the majority of time from home.
And that's a great thing, right?
It is a great thing. It is. But I have to say, I've been happy to be able to go out, to be able to see people in person.
Yeah. I still want the option, though.
You want the hybrid, right? The hybrid is.
I love the hybrid model.
And I was watching I was listening to the news earlier this morning, and they were saying how it's like employees are demanding a hybrid model depending on where they work at. They're saying, look, so employers are really forced. Because we have the proof. So we know that people can work from home. But there's a change in circumstances there. So because we're working from home, then, all of a sudden we were like, well, wait a minute. My home is not conducive to how I want it to be. Let me fix this spot up. So there was a lot of home renovations, a lot of people changing stuff.
That's right.
So there was a lot of different things. Also, we know that some people, did not really, like, relationship wise, that kind of thing, didn't necessarily make it through the pandemic because now, we're living in we're in these spaces with people that we didn't see a whole lot.
Right.
And so we dealt with, there's loss, but there's also a loss of a lot of lives. Like there was a lot of people who did not survive the pandemic, and their sadness and that. So there's a lot that we as a society have gone through.
Right.
And there's still stuff that we're going through related to the pandemic. There are people who financially, have not recovered from that time. So with all of that, those are all things that, we wouldn't have known about those things ahead of time. Right. They caused a lot of stress. And so, when we think about that, we think about, but many of us, we've pushed through, we've made it through, we've made it to the other side, so to speak. So we're used to wearing masks, or if you're not wearing a mask, that's your business. But
it's up to you.
But it's up to you. But we're used to this back and forth. We're used to having a hand sanitizer, wiping things down with the bleach wipes and the Lysol wipes or what have you.
Or when it get too crowded, masks come out.
Well, yes. Or we immediately move away, from different
You
areas.
hit it.
Well, yeah. Yeah, we still kind of look twice, but I think we're a little less because now, it's allergy season. So we're a little less.
That's what they all say. Everybody say the same thing. And the next thing you know, they got some type of crumb.
Well, but I think the thing is we definitely need to, we are mindful of a lot of things that we weren't before.
True.
The importance of washing your hands, which should have been important before the pandemic.
Should have.
But, there's certain, like when you think about it, was basic things that we needed to do. Wash your hands, keep your hands out your face.
Right.
And these were things that we tell kids all the time.
Right. But
however, it was like, oh my God, this is a miracle. This is amazing things that are happening now. So, but we've adapted. So
that's
because of that, because we've had to. We've had no choice.
Yeah.
And that's important to recognize that.
Sure.
So when we think about so here's some strategies. I want to go over some strategies to allow us to persevere, to allow us to be able to, push through, to have that persistence.
Okay.
So one is, and we're going to do a show about coping skills because I think we really don't credit, the ability to cope and our coping strategies.
Right.
We don't give it enough credit.
That's fair.
We don't credit it enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so we'll talk about how you develop coping strategies and, what that means. We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to get into all that today because I feel like that's a show in and of itself.
Right.
But, knowing what works for you day to day, like how you cope. And granted, we have to recognize, do we have adaptive coping skills or do we have maladaptive coping skills? You know what I mean? So there are the coping skills that, reinforce good behavior, and then there are the maladaptive ones that, that sometimes don't really change anything and they don't help us. So they don't move us to a different space.
Right.
And they don't help us to really cope with the situation. So for instance, avoidance, some people are avoidant. So avoidance is, well, I will say this. I think there are some instances where avoiding something for a certain period of time could possibly be adaptive and could possibly be helpful, because especially if you need to step away and think about something for a minute to make the right decision.
Right.
But a lot of times the way avoidance is we're avoiding addressing or taking action or whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
So, and when in that case, the problem is still going to be there. Nothing's going to change. Right. So then it becomes maladaptive.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. So we have to look at coping strategy, and for each person, you know, you have to define your coping strategies for yourself.
It's different. Yeah,
it's different. It's different for everyone. You know, it's the same thing with like how you take care of yourself.
Sure.
You know, how people take care of themselves is very different. Right. It's based on the individual. Right. So knowing what works for you, you know, or developing new skills. So sometimes we need new skills to help us to cope. You know, we need to replace maybe a maladaptive coping skill with a more adaptive one. Right. Right. So if let's say somebody is like, well, you know what, my coping skill is I drink a glass of wine. So the thing is that helping anything? Is that causing you some other problems? So that's what we want to look, because remember, we don't want to cause more problems. Right. So now causing more problems, and you know, it's a terrible thing that men can't multitask. So please forgive me. Are you saying that, I just want to make sure. So the negative coping skill would be maladaptive? Right, yes. Okay, yes. And then the positive one would be what? Would be more adaptive. More adaptive. Okay. And I mean, so, you know, and it's more functional. It can be more functional. Yeah. Because a coping strategy could be tangible or intangible. So it could be something that you're physically doing, but it could also be just about your mindset. It could also be about sitting. I mean, which breathing is a tangible thing, but you know, we can't, you know, because it's something that we're doing. But a lot of times, you know, our stress and aggravation and anxiety and all that stuff, it's in our body. You know what? It's funny. I was just having a conversation with a very dear person, and, you know, kind of their coping strategy for when they're feeling, you know, some type of way or whatever. Their coping strategy is to, you know, retail therapy. Okay. So, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. I don't want to criticize it, but then when you got the retail therapy, and then now you put yourself in a situation where now you're overwhelmed with debt, bills and debt. Right. So it's like a double-edged sword, so to speak. Right. Right. Because sometimes we feel like, you know, and a lot of that comes from it can come from a lot of places. Sometimes it can come from our, you know, how we've grown up. Sure. You know, if we feel like we need to reward ourselves, or we will tell ourselves that we deserve something. It's just like, you know, telling yourself that you deserve this piece of cake or whatever because of what you've been through or whatever, or that you deserve this bag or these shoes or whatever you're going to purchase. It almost seems, you know, that's something different. I'm sorry. It is. It's it's another level. But in terms of it being, because here's the thing with a coping skill. You want a coping skill to serve a purpose, to help you to be able better, to, right? Be better and to be able to do. So that's why we have to look at coping skills in general, but then you look at, is this pivoting me towards something better, or is it adding more problems to my life? Right. That's what I'm saying. Because it's still a way of coping. Like, you know, when people, you know, abuse drugs or alcohol or what have you, you know, that's still a coping skill. It's just one that is possibly causing them more problems. Right. And so it's about recognizing. So a lot of times, and that's why when we get into that, we'll talk about, you know, that idea of recognizing where your coping skills are coming from. Sometimes a coping skill is a maladaptive strategy that you used in the past that you're still applying to today. Right. Okay. So, but the idea is with a coping skill is sometimes we need to develop new skills, and we need to make sure that those skills are allowing us a way of being able to push through these uncertain times and to get back on track, or to just stay the course, to basically stay the course. Right. The next thing is reframing and relabeling. And so these are very similar in nature, but when you look at, so reframing is, you know, and the relabeling is kind of like a strategy after I would say the reframing, but is looking at a situation through a different context. So sometimes looking for the good in the situation. And I'm not saying, you know, this to be like pie in the sky, like, you know, always the positive, because there's some situations that there's negative things, there are bad things that happen, and we need to acknowledge that. Sure. But the idea is, oftentimes there are situations that are occurring. We label them a certain way. Right. And so how we label something is how we experience it. So if I label it a catastrophe, if I label it in a negative way, then I'm going to experience it that way. So like, for instance, it's hot as Hades outside. Okay. And so, as many of us, maybe we would love to stay in the house all day, but we've got stuff we have to do. So the idea is that you could focus on, well, it's so hot. Oh my gosh, it's so hot. It's unbearable. I'm not going to be able to make it. So that is labeling something in a certain way. So I'm labeling it in a way that's going to make me experience it that much more in a negative light. Versus, okay, it's hot outside. I'm grateful that I have a car with the air conditioning is working. Right. I'm gonna focus on the things that I'm trying to enjoy today, whether it's seeing family, whether it's making sure I got my errands so I'm prepared for the week, all of those things. So you see how that's relabeling it. It's reframing the situation too. It's reframing it, looking at it through a different context of what you're going to enjoy versus what's not going your way, which is the heat. Right. And therefore, I'm not getting stuck in what's not okay. Because here's the reality. It's hot outside. I'm not going to be able to change that.
But you still got things to do.
Right. I still have things to do. And those things will help me to feel like I'm starting my week out.
So it's almost like the perseverance is like that energy that I guess you give off or that you find to still keep going, even though it's uncomfortable.
Right. Even though things because the heat is going to be uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
But the other thing, and we talked about this, I said, make sure I'm staying hydrated. I started with my water.
Right.
Make sure you stay hydrated. Make sure, you're not spending too much time in the sun.
Right.
Whatever the case, but whatever it is you need. So I'm going to make sure I'm doing those things.
Right.
But I'm not going to let the heat, because I still need to persevere, even though it's hot outside.
Right.
And I'm also looking forward to the fact that in our area, New Jersey, it's supposed to be like about 20 degrees cooler tomorrow.
Oh, is it?
Allegedly. I'm really hopeful for that.
Okay.
But we'll see what happens.
The thing is, you know what? What's funny is it's like we as humans, we're so I want to say fickle, but I could tell you when it was like 40 and 50.
Oh yeah, we're complaining.
I'm like,
I wish it was warm.
I wish it was warm. So now it's like
that's
hot.
That's always the
we
thing.
like I need to cool off a little bit.
Well, because I think most people, like I know for me, like a 75, that's where I kind of like the land. Is like the 75,
yeah, I'm okay 70,
there. 70, 75, which, is not where we live.
Yeah. 90? Yeah. It's a little much. 90 and humid.
Well, and that's the thing.
It's the humidity.
Yeah,
that's
the humidity. That's what's really, that's what's really kidding you. But here's the other thing. We don't live in a place where it's, over 100.
Yeah, but
and people that do live there, some people love that. Some people love the heat. So everybody is not, because you got to think, we don't experience everything the same way.
That's true.
Some people love this level of heat. They love it.
I don't know if I like the heat. See, you know what? I don't know what it is. Only time people say, oh, well, dry heat is different than humid heat. And they're right. Mm-hmm. But it's like a steam room versus sauna, right?
Yes.
But I'm more steam roomish.
You're more steam. I
don't like sauna. Sauna, I feel like if it was like dry heat, I feel like I'm cooking.
Right, a slow cook.
A slow cook.
It's like on a rotisserie.
Right, like I'm about to get
it's bad.
Orangey, you know what I'm saying? Like they'll put some paprika on me or something.
Right, a little seasoning.
Right, like
little Adobe, a little Lowry's,
Lowry's,
little Lowry's seasoning. So that relabeling, that reframing a situation, looking at it through a different context, so that, because you got to think the way we label stuff, it really impacts our mood,
right?
Because it's impacting our experience. And so therefore we have a negative mood. So you see people, when it's hot, you see people, their moods are very different.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
People are more likely to, not be happy, have some more, some negative reactions to things or whatever, because patience is a lot lower. All right. So moving on, we got a couple more things. So changing your perception. So, and again, this goes hand in hand with the reframing and relabeling, is searching for the opportunities in things versus on what's not going well. You know what I mean? And so when you search for the opportunities, or you're looking at it, you're changing your perception of it. Basically what ends up happening is, you probably are more prone to take some action. Because a lot of times situations require us to take some action. Right. Whatever that is. And don't get me wrong, sometimes no action is the action.
It's the action, right.
Especially if it's something completely outside of your control or whatever.
Right. Right.
And the last but certainly not least, is to live in the moment. So that idea of practicing mindfulness, which, we haven't really done, we have to do a show on that too.
Right.
But that focusing on the present, that because the present is really the only place where you can actually change something. It's not like you can't be prepared for the future, but unfortunately our preparation for the future a lot of times causes worry now.
It does.
And we're preparing for something that is going to go wrong. It's not necessarily looking forward to like, oh, well, this is going to go well.
Right.
This is what's going to happen in my future. So I'm just getting ready for the abundance, so to speak.
Right.
So that focusing on the present, it reduces our stress related to managing those situations that are outside of our control.
Right.
And really what that means, and I know it's so easy to say, well, just live in the moment,
Yeah, but
it is something we have to practice. It is something we have to practice. And sometimes it's about being where you are when you're there.
Yeah. It almost feels like when I'm hearing you talk and I'm just gathering that great knowledge that you articulate, and it makes me feel like, you know what, it's the perseverance of the present that's going to help me get to the future that I'm desiring.
Right. Because that's what's happening right now. Right. So if I'm worried about what's happening down the road, or if I'm just kind of putting myself, I'm engaging in these kind of more maladaptive coping strategies that are not going to help me, not going to support me, then, I'm almost forgetting about what's going on right now. Because sometimes everything is not going wrong. Right. There are some things that are going very well.
Yeah.
And also, gratitude comes into that too, like being thankful. Like we were talking about, okay, feeling a little tired this morning and not feeling as upbeat and everything.
Right.
However, we still showed up.
Right. No, absolutely.
And so that's something to be grateful for. We were able to show up. We still did that because we have a commitment to our audience.
That's right.
So the idea is those are things to be grateful for. Those are things. So it's hard to be negative when you're also practicing gratitude. It's and living in the moment allows us to do that because we're present. We're focusing intentionally on what's going on right now.
Right.
Okay. And don't get me wrong, that's not easy to do. Like I said, it's not easy.
Not at all.
It isn't.
No.
And sometimes, when we're stressed, we're overwhelmed, we just need to take a deep breath. Remember, our breath and our ability to breathe, that's our internal regulator.
Right.
It is. That's a regulator.
Right.
That's what we carry with us. Right. It allows us to calm down
a little bit.
It allows us to bring ourselves back to the moment, center ourselves. And sometimes it's about one or two really deep breaths.
Yep. And you'll be fine.
Yeah,
you still got stuff to do.
You still got stuff to do, but it can help you to now refocus and almost recalibrate, reset, so that then you can go out in the heat and say, you know what? Okay, I just got to make it to the car. Once I get to the car, I put the air on, and I'll be okay.
I'll be fine.
Yes, I'll be fine. So that kind of that brings us to the end of today's show. And I want to put a challenge out to everybody, and I will. I'm trying to work on these reels that I need to do. So I'll be bringing this to you. Oh, you
understand what a reel is? I don't understand that.
I'm getting there. I know that's
the thing. See,
this stuff is so telling in terms of age, but it's just a short video. It's really a short. Fortunately, I have a cousin who is in the millennial category. Okay. And she's wonderful. So she is my guru on all things that I don't know about in terms of I won't say, but I would say social media culture or what have you. So she helps me with that. So, and then my person who is helping me, which I will talk about her more as we're going forth, because she's been a great resource for me in terms of helping with my social media management. So the challenge is, and I talk about this in some of my other podcasts about setting weekly intentions. And so a lot of times that helps us to get through some uncertain times. If there's things we need to do. So when you think about intentions are always in the positive.
Sure.
It's what you're planning to get done, So when you think about setting those intentions, it could be, what do you want to focus on this week? So whether that's something tangible, whether that's something intangible, what's important to you in this week? What's important to get done?
Okay.
What do you need to get done? Are there certain things?
Right.
So, and I always say, write them down, put it on your phone, write it down somewhere and don't have 20 of them, do 2 or 3 things. Do 2 or 3 things, that are going to sort of, because the intentions help to guide our behavior.
Sure. Okay.
And if you're dealing with some uncertain times or there's some decisions you need to make, sometimes it is good to set those intentions, because that can kind of help you to make sure your behavior is aligned with what you want to get accomplished or what you're focused on. And some of those intentions may be the same from week to week.
Got you.
Like some of my intentions are the same thing every week.
Right.
It is. So, and that's okay because I need to be, I'm reminding myself each week that these are my intentions.
These are my intentions. I got
okay.
you.
So that's my challenge for you guys to set some weekly intentions.
Got you.
And that's it for today. Try to keep cool if you're in a hot place. I think everybody's in a hot place. I think the heat is all over the country.
It sure is.
And everywhere. So stay hydrated. Okay. And until next time, be well, be great, be you.